The massive starships hovered silently above the plains of Terrene, casting long and ominous shadows that stretched across the land, swallowing entire fields in darkness. Below them, the Terrenians watched in awe and dread, their eyes reflecting the gleaming hulls that loomed over their peaceful villages. The hum of the ship's engines pulsed through the ground like the heartbeat of a slumbering giant, filling the air with a low frequency that resonated through the bones of every living thing on Terrene. These ships were nothing like the humble craft of the Terrenians, their sleek surfaces shimmering with the kind of advanced technology that spoke volumes of conquest, power, and control. The Terrenians had never known war. For centuries, they had lived in harmony with their world, their lives defined by the rhythm of the seasons, by the steady growth of crops, by the gentle songs of their festivals. They were artists, healers, and farmers, creatures of peace who had built a society free of conflict and strife. But now their world had been invaded by beings from the stars demanding obedience and submission, and bringing with them the cold threat of annihilation. Desperate for help, they had sent out a call to the stars, a last plea for protection, and in answer the humans had come. Captain Rhea stood on the outskirts of the largest Terrenian village, her gaze fixed on the horizon where the starships hung suspended like dark omens. She had arrived with a small detachment of soldiers, just enough to form a defensive line if it came to that. They were under no illusions about what they faced here. Terrene was isolated on the edge of explored space, far from the human colonies that might have offered reinforcements. They were here alone, facing an enemy of unknown strength. But to Rhea and her team, the odds didn't matter. What mattered was that these peaceful beings had asked for help, and humanity would not turn them away. As the elder returned to the village, Rhea felt a surge of resolve rise within her, a fierce determination to protect these people at any cost. She turned to her team, her voice low but filled with authority. "We hold this line no matter what. We are the only thing standing between them and those ships, and we're not going to let them down." Her soldiers nodded, their faces set with grim determination. They understood the stakes, knew that they were facing an enemy far beyond anything they had encountered. But they also knew that they had each other, that they were united by a shared purpose, a bond that transcended rank and protocol. As the night deepened, the starships above began to descend slowly, lowering themselves toward the plains, their engines glowing like malevolent eyes in the darkness. The ground vibrated with their approach, a low pulsing hum that seemed to echo through the bones of every living thing on Terrene. The Terrenians huddled together, their expressions a mixture of fear and hope as they watched the ships draw closer. Rhea and her team held their positions, their weapons at the ready, their eyes fixed on the sky. They knew that this was no ordinary battle, that they were facing an enemy whose power dwarfed their own. But they also knew that they had a duty to protect, to stand as a shield against the darkness. And they would do so without hesitation. As the first ship touched down, sending a shockwave through the ground, Rhea took a deep breath, steadying herself. This was the moment they had prepared for, the moment when they would show the galaxy that humanity would not back down, that they would stand as protectors, as defenders of the innocent, no matter the cost. As dawn broke over the plains of Terrene, casting a warm light across the fields and villages, the tension in the air was almost tangible. The Terrenians who had spent the night huddled together in their homes ventured out tentatively, their eyes scanning the sky where the massive starships still hovered, casting long shadows over the land. They had hoped that perhaps the night would bring peace, that maybe the invaders would leave quietly. But the ships remained unmoving, ominous as ever, their engines emitting a faint hum that reverberated across the plains. Captain Rhea stood at the edge of the village, her gaze unwavering as she watched the ships, her expression hard and unyielding. Her soldiers had spent the night in shifts patrolling the perimeter, setting up makeshift defenses and mentally preparing for the inevitable clash. They knew that they were outnumbered, knew that they were facing an enemy with technology far beyond their own, but they were prepared to stand firm, to fight with every ounce of strength they possessed. Lieutenant Arlo joined her, his face set in grim determination. He glanced at the ships, then back at Rhea, a question in his eyes. "They're not leaving, are they, Captain?" Rhea shook her head, her jaw clenched. "No, they're just waiting. Testing us. They want us to be the first to crack." Arlo nodded, understanding the unspoken challenge. The invaders were trying to intimidate them, to wear down their resolve before a single shot was fired. But if they thought Earth's soldiers would waver, they were in for a rude awakening. As the morning wore on, the villagers began to gather near the humans, their faces lined with worry, but also with hope. They had seen the strength in Rhea's soldiers, had felt the unwavering resolve that radiated from each one of them, and it gave them courage. They didn't fully understand the technology or the tactics that the humans brought, but they sensed the strength of spirit that lay within each soldier. One of the younger villagers, a boy no more than 12, approached Rhea, his eyes wide and curious. "Will you really protect us?" he asked, his voice filled with a mixture of fear and wonder. Rhea knelt down to his level, her gaze steady as she looked into his eyes. "Yes," she said, her voice soft but firm. "We're here to protect you, and we won't let anyone hurt you." The boy nodded, a faint smile breaking through his fear. "Thank you," he whispered before running back to his family, his steps lighter, his heart filled with newfound hope. As the sun climbed higher, the hum of the starships grew louder, a signal that the invaders were preparing for their first strike. The Tyrrhenians held their breath, watching in silence as the ships shifted in the sky, forming a line that stretched across the horizon. It was an intimidating sight, a show of power meant to cow the humans and remind the villagers of their helplessness. But Rhea and her team stood unfazed, their expressions calm as they watched the ships, their weapons at the ready. The first strike came without warning, a beam of light cutting through the air and striking the ground just outside the village, sending a shockwave that rattled the earth and sent plumes of dust into the sky. The Tyrrhenians screamed, clutching each other in terror as the ground shook beneath them, but the humans held their positions. Their faces set, their bodies steady against the tremors. Rhea raised her voice, calling out to her team, "Hold your ground. Don't let them see you flinch." Her soldiers responded immediately, their stances unbroken, their eyes focused on the ships above. The second strike followed swiftly, another beam of light that tore through the ground, closer this time, sending a rain of debris showering down around them. But still the humans held firm, their resolve unshaken. In the command ship hovering above the Terrene plains, the alien commander watched the humans with growing frustration. He had expected them to break, to flee in terror at the first sign of attack. But instead they stood their ground, their faces calm and unyielding, as if daring him to try harder. He clenched his jaw, his eyes narrowing, as he ordered his crew to increase the intensity of the bombardment. Back on the ground, Rhea and her team braced themselves as the strikes intensified, each one coming closer, each one shaking the earth with a force that seemed almost unnatural. The Tyrrhenians huddled together in fear, their eyes wide as they watched the humans standing strong, unyielding even as the ground trembled beneath them. It was a sight they would never forget, a moment that would be etched into their memories forever. The alien commander grew more frustrated with each failed attempt to drive the humans back. Finally, he ordered a ground assault, dispatching a squadron of armored soldiers to engage the humans directly. These soldiers descended from the ships in sleek pods that landed with a thunderous impact, sending clouds of dust billowing into the air as they emerged, clad in heavy armor, their weapons gleaming in the sunlight. Rhea signaled to her team, her voice steady as she issued commands. "Positions. We hold the line here." Her soldiers moved with practiced precision, forming a defensive line just outside the village, their weapons trained on the approaching aliens. They could see the determination in each other's faces, the shared resolve that bound them together, as they prepared to face an enemy that vastly outnumbered them. The alien soldiers advanced, their movements calculated and methodical as they raised their weapons, preparing to strike. Rhea could feel the tension in the air, could sense the weight of the moment pressing down on them as they stood their ground. She took a deep breath, steadying herself as she raised her weapon, her gaze fixed on the approaching figures. Then, with a single command, the first shots rang out, breaking the silence of the plains as blaster fire lit up the battlefield. The humans held their formation, moving as one, each soldier covering the others as they engaged the enemy, with a precision that defied their smaller numbers. The alien soldiers responded swiftly, returning fire with a force that sent shockwaves through the ground, as the two sides clashed in a brutal and relentless exchange. Rhea fought at the front line, her every movement a testament to her leadership, as she directed her team, guiding them through each wave of attack. She could feel the strain on her body, the weight of the battle pressing down on her, but she pushed through, driven by a fierce determination to protect the villagers who had placed their trust in her. The battle raged on, with neither side willing to give an inch. The humans fought with a ferocity that belied their numbers, their movements precise and coordinated, as they repelled the alien soldiers with unyielding strength. Despite the odds, despite the overwhelming force arrayed against them, they refused to back down. As the sun began to set, casting an eerie red glow over the battlefield, the alien soldiers finally began to retreat, pulling back to regroup as the humans held their positions, their expressions fierce and resolute. They had survived the first clash, had faced an enemy that sought to crush them, and they had emerged victorious. Rhea looked over her team, her heart swelling with pride as she saw the determination in their faces, the fire in their eyes. They had stood their ground, had shown the galaxy that humanity would not be cowed, that they would not yield to intimidation or fear. In the quiet that followed, the villagers emerged from their homes, their eyes wide with awe as they looked at the humans, their defenders. They had seen strength and courage unlike anything they had known, and their hearts filled with gratitude and hope. Captain Rhea took a deep breath, her gaze fixed on the horizon where the alien ship still hovered ominously above. She knew that this was only the beginning, that the battle was far from over, but she also knew that they had made their stand, that they had shown the galaxy what humanity was capable of. And as the stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, she knew that they would hold the line again and again, no matter what came next. As night descended over Tareen, the air grew thick with an almost suffocating tension. In the distance, the alien ships continued their ominous orbit, casting an eerie glow over the plains. The sky above was a deep black, scattered with stars that seemed to flicker with an unusual brightness, as if watching the events below with a silent curiosity. The villagers huddled together in small groups, their faces a mixture of fear and hope, as they watched the humans preparing for the next wave of conflict. They had seen the humans fight, had witnessed their bravery and strength, but they also knew that the enemy above was relentless, that this battle was far from over. Captain Rhea stood at the edge of the village, her gaze fixed on the distant ships, her expression set and unyielding. Her team had spent the past few hours reinforcing their defenses, fortifying their positions and checking their weapons with meticulous care. They were exhausted, bruised, and weary from the day's battle, but their resolve remained unbroken. They had faced the first wave and held the line, proving that Earth's soldiers were not to be underestimated. But they knew that the alien forces would return stronger, more determined to crush the defiance that had taken root on this quiet planet. Lieutenant Arlo approached her, his face lined with fatigue but his eyes still sharp and alert. "Captain," he said, his voice low, "scouts report that the enemy is regrouping. They're preparing for a full assault." Rhea nodded, her gaze steady as she took in the information. She had expected this, knew that the aliens would not take their earlier defeat lightly. They would return with everything they had determined to reclaim the ground they had lost. But Rhea also knew that her team was ready, that they would fight with every ounce of strength they possessed. "We hold the line," she said, her voice filled with quiet resolve. "No matter what comes, we stand our ground." Arlo nodded, his expression mirroring her determination. They both understood the stakes, knew that this was more than just a battle for territory. It was a stand for the people of Tareen, for the values that humanity held dear. They were fighting not only for survival, but for the right to protect the innocent, to stand as a shield against those who sought to oppress. As the night deepened, the alien forces began their descent, dropping from the ships above in sleek pods that landed with a thunderous impact, sending shockwaves through the ground. The Tareenians watched in silence, their eyes wide as the alien soldiers emerged from the pods, their armor gleaming in the moonlight, their weapons raised and ready. They moved with a cold precision, their every step calculated as they advanced on the village, their expressions set with an unyielding determination to crush the humans who had dared to defy them. Rhea raised her hand, signaling her team to hold their positions. Her voice was steady as she issued commands, each order delivered with a calm authority that inspired confidence in her soldiers. "Hold the line. We're not giving an inch." The humans braced themselves, their weapons trained on the advancing aliens, their faces set with a fierce resolve. They knew that they were outnumbered, knew that the enemy had technology far beyond their own, but they also knew that they had something the enemy lacked, a unity, a strength of spirit that bound them together as one unbreakable force. The first shots rang out, cutting through the silence as blaster fire illuminated the night. The humans held their formation, moving as one, each soldier covering the others, as they engaged the enemy with a precision that defied their smaller numbers. The aliens responded with a relentless assault, their weapons blazing as they pushed forward, their movements swift and coordinated. Rhea fought at the front line, her every action a testament to her leadership, as she directed her team, guiding them through each wave of attack. She could feel the strain on her body, the pull of exhaustion pressing down on her, but she pushed through, driven by a fierce determination to protect the villagers who had placed their trust in her. The battle raged on with an intensity that seemed almost surreal. The night was filled with the sounds of blaster fire, the clash of weapons, the shouts of soldiers as they fought with everything they had. The Tyrrhenians watched from the safety of their homes, their eyes wide as they took in the sight of the humans standing firm, unyielding even as the alien forces pressed them from all sides. One of the alien commanders advanced his figure, towering and imposing, his weapon raised as he targeted Rhea with a cold, calculating gaze. She met his stare, her expression unflinching as she raised her weapon, prepared to face him head-on. The two locked eyes, a silent understanding passing between them, a recognition of the strength that lay within each other. The commander moved with a deadly grace, his attack swift and precise as he engaged Rhea in combat. But she met his every move with a determination that matched his own, her movements calculated and focused as she fought to defend the ground they had claimed. The two clashed in a brutal exchange, each strike a testament to their resolve. As the battle continued, the human soldiers began to tire, their movements slowing as exhaustion set in. But their spirits remained unbroken, their faces still filled with the same fierce determination that had carried them through each wave of attack. They knew that they could not afford to falter, knew that the lives of the villagers depended on their ability to stand firm. Finally, as the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a warm glow across the battlefield, the alien forces began to retreat, pulling back as they realized that the humans would not be defeated. The humans watched them go, their expressions a mixture of relief and pride as they lowered their weapons, their bodies aching with exhaustion, but their spirits unyielding. The Tyrrhenians emerged from their homes, their faces filled with awe as they looked at the humans, their defenders. They had seen strength and courage unlike anything they had known, and their hearts swelled with gratitude as they realized that these soldiers from Earth had stood for them, had protected them even when the odds seemed insurmountable. Captain Rhea took a deep breath, her gaze sweeping over her team, each face reflecting the pride and unity that had carried them through the night. They had faced an enemy of overwhelming power, had stood against a force that most would have fled from, and they had emerged victorious. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting its light over the village and the plains beyond, Rhea knew that this was more than just a victory. It was a testament to humanity's strength, a reminder that they would not back down, that they would stand as protectors, as defenders of the innocent, no matter the cost.